Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. And today's video we're going to be looking at the new moon, or the full moon, sorry, in Aries. This is for the 14th of October 2019, or the 13th, depending on what part of the world you're in. Firstly, I hope that everybody is fairly okay under this energy at the moment. It's definitely a volatile energy that is present with us. It's one of the reasons why this imagery really spoke to me a lot in terms of the conversation I want to have today and the astrology. So I hope that you're well and that you are coming out the other side of this full moon with a transformed self, or at least in the process of a transformed self. So a couple of things I just want to get out the way just before I start talking about the astrology. One, for those of you that are new to our channel, or new to Raising Vibrations, in the description below and the comments is a link to our website. All of our content is there. Go check us out if you feel a resonance towards us. We've got loads of free stuff there, and learn about evolutionary astrology, human design, all of those things. Okay. So what has been going on? What is the sense of this full moon in Aries? And this picture spoke to me quite a lot. I think a couple of days ago I posted on the community page that I had a video called Order and Chaos, Order Out of Chaos. And it was pretty much speaking to, what does Pluto and Capricorn really mean for us collectively? What is Saturn's symbolism, or Saturn's approach in Capricorn and closer to Pluto, mean for us, and that huge conjunction that's essentially taking place in Capricorn with the South Node there. And there's so much to talk about. So I'm gonna, I didn't actually release that video because of just my own process, but I felt like I would integrate a lot of those insights in today's video. So that's why the thumbnail actually looks the same. Okay. Let me go over to the chart and let's take a look at what's actually occurring for us. So I'm going to structure it this way. I'm going to do very much like a left brain analysis, just kind of highlighting to us all of the symbols over here and what they can represent, and then I'll kind of move into more of a right brain abstract intuitive sense of what I perceive is essential to really grasp with this chart. So this full moon has the sun at 20 degrees Libra and the moon at 20 degrees Aries, and that's squaring Pluto. That's an exact square. So there's an exact square between the sun, moon, and Pluto. Now, in human design, the moon and the sun and moon dynamic is actually in the gate 21, if I'm not mistaken, and it's the shock and initiation. And so this is a really interesting square or T-square that's taking place between the sun in Libra, the moon in Aries, and Pluto in Capricorn. They're cardinal signs. So these energies speak to shifts. Okay. Cardinal energy, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, Libra, those 4 points, they are called cardinal signs, and they reflect initiation of change. Okay. So initiation of change will come through Aries, that then will lead to a new emotional and psychological sense of familiarity or identity, Cancer, that then will become the relating pattern to other people in Libra, that then will eventually become a sense of boundary or definition in Capricorn, so like direction. So direction materializes out of Aries, and that's how the cycle goes. So we've got Pluto, which is the energy that says to us in life, this is what no longer works for us. This must die or end, because it's no longer it's no longer has life in it. So Pluto wants to end things, and it's square to the moon says, well, there's a sensitivity around one's self-image, right? The moon, sensitivity around one's self-image, the moon, that is being hit by Plutonian energy. So there's a necessity for breaking down a more like a superficial sense of identity into a deeper understanding of oneself. Okay, so it's like breaking open the shell of something to dive deeper into something. So we're all, with this full moon, being invited to dive deeper into our inner psychological nature, right? To examine the underlying structure of our self-image, and particularly the persona, the personality that has been created, that we've um, developed through our life as we have experienced life, the impressions, the people, the things that we've been affected by, the circumstances that we've had to deal with, the scenarios and events that we've dealt with in our lives. All of them have shaped us in a specific way. And along the way, we've also had to put some of those things into little boxes because we were unable to process them. And this energy is kind of prodding at the sort of sense of identity that we've created that allows us to interact with the world in a way that we can make sense of it. So our ego. And so this Pluto square to the moon is suggesting a shock and breaking out of the mold. And what is it trying to suggest to us? What are we trying to break out of? Well, we're trying to break out of sort of pre-existing or preconditioned forms of identity that no longer work for us. Okay. Now, the opposition to the sun and the sun square to Pluto suggests to us through the sign of Libra, which is, of course, the necessity for trying to um, integrate two polarities. Well, it feels like there can be like literally like so many descriptions of how these archetypes play out. Okay. And so there can be multiple ways in which this can arise for us. But what I feel and sense intuitively with the square between Pluto and the Sun is a kind of metamorphosis of purpose. And the metamorphosis of purpose, Pluto metamorphosis, purpose, Sun, comes through the breaking down of the sense of identity. And so it's almost like probing us to go deeper into ourselves to figure out and find out what really aligns us, what really brings purpose to us. And in that sense, um, this energy is awakening spirits. It's like awakening spirits to us. And that can be really terrifying on some level because it means that all of your security is being challenged on some level and the fixations, our psychological fixation to the identity that gives us a sense of identity. We're like, once that breaks down, it's like, who are we? And I think that unfamiliarity can be very difficult to deal with, a lot of anxiety and so on. So little sudden earthquake shocks, and that T square is suggesting to us a change, a shift that is occurring. Then you look at the other pattern of energy that's taking place between Mars in opposition to Chiron. So Mars at 6 degrees Libra, Chiron at 2 degrees Aries. Chiron's also retrograde as well. So this energy is not going to come through something along the lines of, oh, this is a pleasantry shift in understanding. I think there's going to be a very strong sensitivity to one's own, almost like I would like to describe it as a, a sensitivity to relatability to others and oneself. So there's almost like a through others, through conflict with others, or through a kind of trigger through others, it brings us into an emotional, a deep somatic, so something that's very body orientated, deep somatic emotional experience within inside of ourselves. And the opposition, in my view, suggests where outside of us, or when I say outside of us, I mean through other people or through events and circumstances, we're kind of being triggered inwardly to feel the deeper emotion that we have to our lives. So it's like we're being able to sense and feel in our body, in our cellular memory, in our nervous system, um, things that don't sit well with us. So like tension in the body, as an example, would be a great way to feel where there is a psychic trauma that we may carry, right? We may carry some tension in our psyche. We may carry some tension in our emotional and psychological development. And this opposition with Chiron and Mars, considering that Mars is the energy that's actually influencing Chiron, because Chiron is in Aries and Aries is ruled by Mars, that there is a kind of freedom dynamic that wants to um, be brought out of it. We like want to liberate ourselves from the psychological, emotional imprinting and attachments to things that have happened in our lives that may feel uh, like not limiting to us. Like we feel blocked by it. It's like it's stopping us from growing. It's no longer has spirit in it. That I would say the best word, right? And this is kind of prodding us to explore deeper, to investigate deeper into ourselves, and to really get into um, the more meaningful aspect of what is real for us, right? Deeper inner emotional authenticity. And I when I use the word authentic here, I literally mean the ability to honor one's sense of being and to live in that state, so that there can be a natural um, flow between what is your life wanting you to live and how you're responding to that life, how you're interacting with that life. Like a lot of us have a perception that this is what we think our life should be, and life is trying to pull us in a direction that it wants to take us on. And I think that we can struggle a lot with that relationship between wanting it this way and life saying this is the creative direction for us. And I think that has a lot to do with our sense of humanness. I think a sense of the ego wanting to have control over a direction that may have been influenced by a set of societal rules or circumstances. And so those dynamics can almost, in a sense, distort what could be really real for us and inspirational for us, because the deeper part of ourselves, which is where this creative impulse is coming from, may not really be truly valued or interpreted correctly, or potentially understood as the principle that is driving us to what is real for us and what is authentic for us and what we're here to really see within ourselves. So I think that opposition between Chiron and Mars really suggests a tension between truth that is correct for us and how that is being interfaced with others and other people, and what types of relationship dynamics we wish to um, form bargains with that may or may not actually be correct for us. So we're learning a lot about how to break down these pre-existing structures and pre-existing models and impressions that we think we should be doing versus what is really real for us in that way. And again, this comes down to Pluto squaring the moon and the sun kind of pushing us to really investigate what's really deeper in ourselves, and to own that and to honor that and to see that as the path of your awakening experience ultimately. Um, let's have a look what else is on this chart over here. We've got Mercury. It's actually starting to go into its shadow period, sitting in Scorpio. We've got Venus sitting in Scorpio as well. So Venus is now very much perched into the archetype of deep unconscious investigation. And what I like about this chart, which is really interesting, is that if you look here, you've got Mercury, Venus in Scorpio, you've got um, Saturn, South Node, Pluto in Capricorn, and you've got Neptune in Pisces, and then you have the North Node in Cancer. And you can see here between the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th, and the 4th, there are these blue trine lines, like so. Okay. And it's forming a kite. Now, the reason why I suggested metamorphosis in the beginning was that these symbols over here, when you're looking at Scorpio, you're looking at Capricorn, you're looking at Pisces, and you're looking at Cancer, they represent the archetypal process or manifestation of metamorphosis. Okay. So let's look at it like this. When you observe a caterpillar's transmutation to a butterfly, there are stages that take place. And what you'll notice is that through the different stages, the form of each that sort of stage has a different structure to it. So the caterpillar has a specific form. This would be Capricorn. And that is its sort of essence, right? But a caterpillar is not the same essence as a butterfly. So the essence would be the Pisces energy that's held here, and the Scorpio energy that's held here. It's the essence, is the water energy. And the form would be Capricorn. So boundary, definition. It's like how can you interact with something and understand its essence without a form? So human beings, for instance, manifest human bodies that are Saturnian in nature, they're physical in nature, Capricorn, and they have definition. And that definition holds within it consciousness or the essence or the spirit. So spirit can experience itself through human form. And so in all things that are living, there is an essence, but that essence is essentially a like it's non-physical. It's non-physical. We can't actually grab the essence of it. But when it's in physical form, or in it's in plant form or tree form, or when anything takes form, we can actually use our senses to be able to interact with it and be able to feel the essence of something and know it's there. So in terms of looking at the moon square Pluto, the sun square Pluto, and the oppositions, of course, and thinking about human design and the gate 21 of shock and initiation, it's like we are through this energy in a state of transmutation of the shell or the form that no longer has essence in it, and it is the reconstruction of that form into something new. And the way that we're able to make sense of that uh, change is the identification with feeling the essence, with sensing the essence, with knowing the essence. And so that might be really difficult to kind of comprehend and conceptualize. But ultimately, what you're really looking for and trying to understand is what alights you, like what brings you, what moves you into inspiration, what moves you into purpose. And that in and of itself can be a very difficult question, because a lot of people that I speak to struggle with that. It's like, what is my purpose? And a lot of the time that loss of purpose, or loss of sense of direction, or loss of meaning, um, it's very subtle and it's very nuanced. A lot of the time it's just that you're not seeing your path in the way that the soul is seeing it. And so that can give the illusion, as it were, that there is no essence. But we just haven't really cultivated the ability to feel the spark that always wants to arise within us and to kind of illuminate in us and wants to animate us. And I think this is hugely part of it. It's like we're in a restructuring of being animated. So these water signs over here are kind of like animations, and the Capricorn Cancer axis holds a form for that animation, right? So as this energy kind of pushes us more into a sense of realization that something that doesn't animate us anymore needs to be cut off, and we need to begin putting attention into the things that do animate us and kind of following that trajectory, right? And each of us has an individual way of doing that. And so this is a pattern that we want to start working with in our lives right now. We want to take that leap of faith, Jupiter in Sagittarius, and, you know, align with the truth that's clear and inspirational for us and meaningful for us. And we want to infuse that into a structure that has a direction for us, you know. And we're very sensitive to being able to access that inner world with all these symbols here at the moment. So the shock is to let it leap us out of the ego self and into the deeper self, and exploring that territory and understanding that. And so I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about what that means at this point in time. I wonder if is that occurring for you, and if that's the case, please let me know in the comments. I like to see some feedback on your experience of this. I just wanted to close quickly around the water trinity, which is where the Mercury and the Venus is, and the Neptune and the Cancer, and how it connects with Saturn and Capricorn. The metamorphosis is that when you see the butterfly, its form is completely different to the caterpillar, and it goes through a kind of like mutation phase, right? The form actually dissolves, and so these energies at the moment suggest to us, as I said, a kind of shock into initiating a dissolving process that changes the form. And for each of us, we have a form that has, in a sense, been the mold of our direction. It's the mold of our inspiration. It was held us. And so right now, that is being recalibrated and redefined and reshaped into something that, like I said, has more purpose in it. So I wanted to continue talking about this video that I wanted to do last week, which was called Order Out of Chaos, a deeper look at Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And I just wanted to add, some of my personal thoughts to what could be, or what I've processed inside of myself, and some conclusions I've come to myself, and what I feel could be very beneficial to some of you that may resonate with what I want to share. And it has a lot to do with this picture. It has a lot to do with this image that's on the screen at the moment. And I'm going to flip back to this image here so that you can kind of see some of the imagery that's I put across here. And I want you to notice the line between where the flames or the heat, the sort of volcanic energy is interacting with the tree trunk, right? And so the tree trunk in this imagery invokes a sense of life and its vulnerability and its frailness. And we're kind of moving in a time right now where I think that there is so many different variables existing, so many different pockets of realities where each reality seems to hold a different view of what we are currently experiencing as a collective at the moment. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. Like in some fields, if your focus and attention is on climate change and stuff like that, you can be really, really taken back by the things like, on one side, there's one side that feel that this is kind of blown out of proportion. It's influenced by larger forces, and there is no such thing as climate change in that sense, and that this is really just a propaganda kind of machine that's taking hold of people and using their vulnerability to amplify a perception of what's going on, right? And then there's the other side that reflects more of that the fear of the future. We only have this amount of lives. Like, you can see that there's a kind of polarity that's existing in that sphere, in that reality, in that world. And what seems to be very evident is there's a clash between something that seems to be destructive and something that wants to exist. So the tree wants to live, and the force that's on the other side is destructive and wants to end it. And on both sides, that polarity exists. There's one force, there's one perception, one truth that is always in opposition to something that is destructive, against something that feels like it's organic and is natural, right? You can see that between the two polarities, and it's kind of held within everything at the moment. There seems to be a very strong, with Pluto and Capricorn and now Saturn bringing there, like really, really highlights to us the societal divide where our perceptions can be sort of influenced deeply by our biases and prejudices, and the deeper psychological makeup of our own genetic biology. Some people are more prone to seeing things in an Aquarian way and progressive, whereas some people are more prone to seeing things in a more conservative Capricorn way. And so we're all, on some level, sort of produced by and are held by the diversity of life's um, complex makeup. And that complex makeup meaning that we are all having our different points of views and our different ways in which we see and perceive reality. And that can be really, really difficult in a world where, if we're going to be sort of living in a kind of global village, how do we respect that diversity? This is kind of like a really big question that seems to arise in the world at the moment. Is and it's very new. The internet and the World Wide Web and connection has not been around for a long time for us to fully understand the nature of what it is. And I think that we, in a different sphere where you can have people that are, manifesting lots of conferences and lots of types of big talks where two people will come on stage and they'll have like a deep conversation about their perception of reality as they've studied it. um, and they will add their kind of perception of what's going on, and you can see all different types of walks of life with people in authority kind of in that. And everybody, that same model still applies, that each person seems to bear with them, or bear with them, which is carry with them a psychological disposition to what they have experienced in their life, and that becoming the thing that validates their reality or validates our reality. We're all part of this, including me. And the Saturn conjunct Pluto dynamic, I think, at a very sort of like um, uh, social level, is highlighting to us the complexity of a new world that is emerging into our awareness, and how, in a very truthful way, we need to acknowledge that it's pretty difficult to understand fully and comprehend and make sense of what does it mean to us. So I don't personally believe that there's anybody on the planet that fully, in the most authentic and honest sense, can say that they have a strong grip on reality and go, I feel completely comfortable with the world as it is, and what we're experiencing. I feel like there is that, if you had to be really truthful with yourself, as much as you could be, like in my case, for instance, I'm doing these videos, I still sense and feel a lot of uncertainty about certain things. I still feel a lot of, sometimes a little bit of confusion about, what is the right direction, what is the right feeling. This is one of the reasons why I use astrology as a kind of guiding principle to help me make sense of things. And I think we're in a time where there is a tremendous amount of change that's taking place. And I think that the content of information and material and things that are arising into our awareness, that is so new and so innovative, and the potential and the possibility, it can be very overwhelming to our more animalistic biological makeup, which is our little limbic system and our little reptilian brain and our little prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala, and the way that the eyesights work and our senses. It's a lot. And I think that it's not uncommon to feel that in all of the different shapes and worlds that are present for us, that we can perceive and see and hear and interact with, and the different spheres of interests that exist in the world. Like, your individuality can literally go, I'm really interested in reading. And you can go onto Facebook and type in reading groups, blah, blah, blah. And you can find like dozens of groups that are specifically designed for people that just really enjoy reading. And so they're kind of doing like book reviews and stuff like that. And you can have people that are interested in human design and Carl Jung and astrology, fixing motorbikes, whatever it is. There's such a vast opening towards the acceptance of individual expression, and for us to find our right communities and tribes. But the other side of it is that we still are, on some level, connected to the biological makeup of our human evolution. And that's what I think is really difficult for us at the moment, And what I think also plays out quite a lot in the more physical world, not the non-physical world where more of the archetypes are um, present, but in the physical world where we see the manifestation of the deeper aspects of our human nature. And this very clear us versus them dynamic is encoded within our nervous system. Um, we have a sympathetic nervous system and we have a parasympathetic nervous system. We have a nervous system that releases cortisol into our body when we feel threatened, and that's connected to the limbic system and the reptilian part of the brain. And so when you bombard our reality with so much fear of uncertainty and anxiety and stuff, those biological mechanisms that are held within us don't have the discernment that our sort of prefrontal cortex has the capacity to use, i.e., those electrical systems don't identify the threat as something that is non-threatening. It just responds to that. So there's a tremendous amount of um, psychological and emotional bombardment taking place in our world, and we're very sensitive to triggers, and we're very sensitive to a lot of things that can really induce this parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system in our biology, which brings us into a state of us versus them complexes. And what arises out of this polarity is a very difficult way to effectively communicate. And the effective communication um, can't happen because biologically and the nature of our neurochemicals, i.e., things like oxytocin, for instance, that are necessary to be released into our system in order for us to be able to feel that safer um, element, our brain actually responds to it. Our vagus nerve can potentially come online when we're um, able to feel safe in experiences. Those things don't have the full potential to actually rise into a constant state. And so the the thing here is that we are living in a world at the moment where our biological evolution is reached a kind of point where it is interfacing with the next step in our human evolution. And I think that the gap between the biological limitations of our nervous system and the psychological makeup of what that is, and this new world that we're emerging into that has technology and artificial intelligence and the different ways in which technology is interacting with us. And another example to kind of really highlight this is if there's an event that takes place in China, for instance, that's of a massive proportion, like a bombing, for instance, right? It doesn't take like a day or two for that information to reach your awareness. We can know about it instantly. And not only can we know about it instantly, we can have access to all of the different sources and their perceptions of what they think it is in a matter of minutes. We're all connected to a source of information that allows us to make sense of reality based on our biases. And those biases are actually influenced at a very deeper level by the nature of our psychological and emotional shaping. And that in and of itself then becomes the way that we perceive and validate our reality. And this is incredibly complex and deep. And the reason why I'm illuminating here is not to get into this, but to really just reveal that when you're actually interacting with life now at the moment, I invite you to observe where this dynamic is part of you and to check in with yourself, to observe where if you're in a state of, say, um, fight or flight, for instance, how is that influencing your perception of what you think is there? And can that be trusted in the moment? Or do you need some time to reflect upon your perception of something and to take into consideration what is occurring in a holistic way so that you're not influenced by the polarity of us versus them as one dynamic, but also a sort of realization that each side has a shadow darkness side, an evil side, and each side has a good side. And our ability as a human race at the moment seems to be, or one thing at least, seems to be the capacity to tap into where that exists within us and how much of that energy is used to apply something to cause suffering to another person because of your own wounding in yourself. So there is a part of us that has been wounded. There is a part of us that has been affected by life. And that sucks because it does cause damage. It does cause pain. It does cause suffering. And the question is, how well are you equipped to be able to work through those things so that not only does your psychological and emotional state become healthier, i.e., put order to your chaos, but to also allow yourself the ability to take charge of your life from the things that are psychological and emotionally affecting you. And it comes down to that we are and have come into a world where the structure is already set up the way that it was. It's very clear and evident to us that as we inherited this, we also inherited all of the things that were destructive about it, just like with everything. And it is our responsibility on some level to master individually, not collectively, because this is the thing that really annoys me the most. And I think it annoys a lot of people if you really think about it, is that it's very important to be aware how your anger or judgment on something doesn't include another person's perception of the same thing, because you're claiming authority on that person. You're saying to that person, well, I think the human race is horrible because I was subjected to sort of narcissistic pathological abuse as a kid, and so every single human being is horrible and broken. And that's not true. And so we've got to be really, really careful of how we bring our own destruction to the organic life. And it starts with individually understanding the split in you, the divide in you, the polarity in you. And that's, again, what this kind of chart is really revealing to me at the moment, is that, yes, fair enough, there's sort of like some blue, fluffy bubbles of joy and happiness and rainbows and a couple of pink bunnies bouncing around with their, like, oh, it's all in a good place. And that's true. There is some really, really amazing and positive things progressing. But there is also a hidden darkness that is existing within our psychological nature at the moment that is very evident and clear in the world. And if we're not going to begin understanding the complexity and addressing these things in ourselves, there is a tremendous danger in the manifestation of these shadow complexes into our reality, and the destruction that that can cause, while being completely unaware of the influence that that structure, that shadow aspect or that disconnect has. And I think that part of coming into a kind of global community is the realization that life is not straightforward. It is difficult, it is suffering, it is painful. And every single one of you that's watching this video right now, at some level, has gone through an experience that's just been utterly intense to deal with. And every single person is walking around with that in themselves. It just depends on who's willing to turn to face the baggage, unpack it, reorganize it, and say, my duty to myself and then to the collective during a time of intense change is the responsibility to order my own chaos in that way, to reconstruct the 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 destruction in me, so that my relationships into this idea of good and evil, or what can be damaging and what can be proactive, can be fixed. And this is all over. I mean, the conversation is so vast that I can't literally, like, I would literally have to talk for like 8 hours for me to fully like put this all through. So my intention here is to kind of illuminate or evoke something in you, for you to be able to contemplate this in yourself, than to sit and have this dialogue, because it's just too long, it's just too big. But these are my kind of reflections on not only my own personal experience over the last month, and the necessity to really wake up to what this time means for me individually. We all have Saturn conjunct Pluto and the South Node in our chart somewhere. Right now, we're at a point where we each have this role that we have chosen to play by the choice of our birth to order something out of our chaos. And chaos being Pisces, order being Capricorn. So we've got the Saturn in Capricorn in its home sign. We've got Neptune in Pisces in its home sign. This is order out of our chaos. And the way that we need to do that is we need to come into a kind of metaphorical structure in our minds that has value and meaning to us. And that's the thing that's so intense about this world that we live in right now, is that we don't have an organizing structure in our psyche that holds the values that we perceive that we need in order to organize our lives. And I don't mean it in the sense that everybody doesn't have that. That's not true, because I'm doing the very thing that I said, don't speak for other people. But what I am saying that seems to be very relevant is the reorganizing of our the reorganizing of our perception that holds our direction in place needs a value structure. And that value structure, Uranus and Taurus is kind of bringing into focus. And so does this chart. It like illuminates to us the essence of what is real for us. And from there, we can start packing into this structure in our lives that guides us. And we don't have that because the old world does not symbolize to us that meaning. It's decaying, it's dying. And part of that process is to have to go through your inner, you have to traverse your own inner psychological and emotional landscape. And the greatest thing that you can offer yourself in the world right now is the ability to go into that landscape and explore what that is for you, why that's there. And then what births itself out of that is the realization of purpose, because it naturally arises. It arises out of the archetypal bed that is your existence, because you are the totality. Your sense of identity at an ego level, which is this persona that we have, is a mere fraction of the totality. But it is not something to be confused by understanding that we are, it's not like a new age spiritual thing. It's the realization that we are individually carrying with us a archetypal story. And if we don't navigate inside of ourselves and awaken that inside of ourselves, then we will forever be existentially seeking something to fill the void of that inner disconnect. And that duality between us at the moment needs to be unified. We need to have a sacred marriage. And so again, the Pluto and Libra, as you're coming into this world right now, you're learning this very, very clearly, this union between the purpose and meaning and the destination of your life and the realization of what that is. Okay. All right, peeps. I really hope that you got something out of this today and that it had some meaning to you. I'm always interested to hear your comments. So please feel free to write the comments over there. Share with me what you're going through and what you're dealing with. And it's always good to see other people in that sense. For those of you, like I said right at the beginning of this video, if you want to learn more about what we do at Raising Vibrations, we're on the interweb, and our content is sitting in the description with our website link. Okay, so if you want to go check out our school, you want to go check out our articles, other videos that we've done, peruse our place, then click on the link below and it will take you to our website. Okay. All right, so everybody, have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.